Okay, so for this session, we're going to be looking at data migration, which is one of the core activities that is sitting in the hands of Ike. Ike, you are in charge of finance, um, the core finance processes and data migration. So you want to take note of this class. So basically, let's look at data migration and how we're going to be doing data migration in a project. So data migration basically looks at everything around identifying data sources, duplicate records, data mapping, transformations, and trial migration. So don't forget, when I give you a task, reach out, use your friends and colleagues that are available to you know share what they think and also support you where they can. It's part of your mindset as a BA. When you have a task, reach out, share your thoughts with someone or ask for help where you think you need more assistance. So reach out. So let's look at data migration. Now, what is data migration process, plan, and strategy? Very simply put, data migration is the process of transferring data from a source system, which is the source is where the data is sitting, to a target system where you want the data to move to. So it's the process of transferring data from a source system to a target system. It's the core task for any data storage professional. Of course, whether you're a data storage professional, whether you're a data professional, whether you're a finance professional, anybody who will be managing data, your core responsibility is how do we move the data? For example, in our upcoming project, they'll most likely be sending us data from their QuickBooks in Excel format. So how do you move it from that Excel format to Sage One Cloud? Is what you have to find out. And luckily for you, if you go through the course, you're going to see how that happens. So you need to um, you know you need to learn, take notes, and of course we're going to be doing all these things live. Everything we're going to be doing is cloud. We're going to be doing it on the cloud because the system is cloud. It's called Sage Business Cloud Accounting. So we're not doing anything physical. Everything we're going to be doing, data migration, testing, training, everything will be in the cloud. So that's the one of the major tasks we're going to be having. Then let's look at data migration scenarios. So usually data migration comes as part of a larger project, such as, so what triggers data migration? Why do you need to do data migration? What is the trigger? One is when a legacy software for legacy software modernization and replacement. So for example, if new versions of a software comes out, then you need to migrate from the old system to the new system. So that's one of the trigger for data migration. For example, we have SAP ECC and SAP S/4HANA. That's one of the largest IT projects in the world right now. So how do you migrate data from that ECC, the old system, to the new system? So that's one of the reasons or one of the triggers for data migration. Number two, expansion of system and storage capacity. So when you expand the system storage capacity, you might need to move information around. So that could be one of the reasons for data migration. The third will be the introduction of an additional system working alongside the existing application. So integrations. So for example, you want to bring in a customer relationship software to work with SAP or Sage, or you have a third-party application that interfaces with that system you're working with. That will lead to data migration because you have to make sure that data will be also existing in the other platform. Then the fourth is a shift to centralized database to eliminate data silos and achieve interoperability. operability. That's more like operations. So what it means is that if you are if your server is currently sitting on different databases, you might want to move your servers to one central database. For example, I've been in a project where the company had multiple websites. Every country had their own website. So it was very difficult to um, interoperate between countries or share information between countries. So that project was to make sure they have one website for all the countries of the world. And of course, that website is able to translate to different languages depending on the country, right? So if you're in Italy, the system the website is able to translate what you have in English to Italy or to Italian language. So that was a huge project I was also part of. So that can lead to you moving data around from one system to another. Another thing that can lead to data migration is moving IT infrastructure to the cloud. Exactly what we're trying to do with Sage project. So currently the system they are using is sitting on a local server that's in the office, and they cannot work once they leave the office, right? They want to move all those information from that local server to the cloud. That's one of the major reasons why we need to do data migration. And the last but not the least, merger and acquisition activities. When IT landscapes, of course, everything must be consolidated into a single system. So when companies begin to acquire other companies in other countries or within the country in other locations, then you have to consolidate your data, right? You have to, because if you want to have visibility as a group, or you want to make sure it's easy to do business with you, then you have to make sure that you're able to share information and consolidate your data so that you can gain better insight into how the business is doing as a group and in different countries. So you might need to move data around. So these are the scenarios where you might need to do data migration. Any questions? Let me check. No questions. Okay. So let's look at a data migration strategy. So why Ike is going to be responsible for this, I believe he will be pitching OPay, and he will also be pitching Tamomo, right? Because you guys need to work together on this. So when we say data migration framework, what does it mean? Data migration frameworks helps you to, align basically gives you that overall view on your data migration end-to-end process. So data migration is a serious process and needs to be taken seriously. And of course, the job of a BA here is to make sure all the data that the functional consultants need to implement the system are not just collected or assessed, but we have a migration strategy we're going to be using to deliver on data migration. It's not just about getting information and dumping it somewhere. No, we have a data migration strategy which we're going to be using. So if you look at the strategy here, we have this milestone. So first you have here is conceptualize, right? What it means is, so the first phase in that data migration framework is to conceptualize. What does it mean? It means that you have to identify the legacy data source system. So you need to identify where is that data currently sitting and in what system, right? Number two is identify the data custodians. Who are the owners of this data? For example, if the data is sitting on another system, let's say QuickBooks, you need to know what that system is by doing your research. And you also need to understand who are the owners, who owns the data. Is the data owned by the business and the data is currently on the business server, or is the data owned by a third party? Then the next will be to obtain data requirements for target system vendors. You need to gather requirements. You need to also involve the vendor who is currently managing that server or server. The fourth is conduct data migration workshop. So you have to plan for data migration workshop. So Ike, Tamomo, take notes, and okay, data migration because it's linked to training and quality and support. We need to make sure we prepare for a data migration workshop. In that workshop, we're going to be, you know, trying to find out all the available data we can get from the business. Then the deliverable for this phase will be target system data requirements. So we need to make sure we have all the requirements for that target for the target system. The system we want to migrate to, we need to make sure we have all the requirements we need. The second is high-level data migration approach. So one of the deliverables will be to implement this our data migration approach. If you see the approach, first is conceptualize and analyze. Second is design. Then, sorry, third is design. Fourth is to build, test, and deploy. So let's look at the next. The next approach is to design. So when you look at design phase, develop data migration strategy. So the activities in this phase is to develop a data migration strategy. So part of the job that the data team is going to be doing for us is to come up with a data migration strategy, which will let the business know that this is our strategy and we want you to support us, in getting the data we need. Then the next will be develop detailed data mapping documents. You get a sample of what that looks like. So you have to develop a detailed data mapping document to make sure that you have mapped the business requirements and the system requirements. So let's say, for example, SAP has a template that you use to gather data. You need to map those templates with the data you have already gathered from the business or the business data. So that mapping has to happen. And of course, so that mapping has to happen. And for deliverables for this phase, you have data migration strategy and data mapping documents. These two documents are very, very important. And like I've said, Tamomo, Hope, and Ike, who will be the owner of this process, we need to come up with these two documents, the data migration strategy and the data mapping document. Please take notes. The sixth is deploy. No, of course, that's not the sixth. The build is the next. So let's say the build is when you are finished documenting and coming up with the strategy and mapping documents, you have to build the phase. So you have to do a data migration configuration, and the deliverable is for Sage or SAP data migration template. So I'll give you the templates. For example, if you go to Sage, when you start learning, you would see that if you come to company here, you will see import and export data. So they already have a format for which if I check my system, let me see if I have the format. I don't think I have. Okay. Okay. I think I did one. Yeah. This is what the format looks like. See if this will open. Yeah, because this is what the format looks like. So you have to populate this format. Just enter according to the fields you have. So you have to enter. If I change this and upload, it's going to. So if I want to create 100 customers, I don't need to go to system and start adding them one after the other. I can use the templates and populate the templates and add. So that's one of the things we're going to be doing, right? So after we have done the data migration configuration, we need to test. The next stage is to test. So you have to go into the system, make sure the data you uploaded has come, so execute a data migration mock run, execute data migration validation. So you have to make sure that in your QA environment, on your development environment. You have tested it, the data has come, all the information that you've uploaded are correct. And of course, you have to make sure that somebody validates that. Then the next is to deploy. So perform production data migration, execute cutover migration, validation. So of course, the phase here is to move all the data you have migrated from the QA system to the production system. So this is a data migration strategy. And for us to succeed in this project, we need to have a data migration strategy. So Tamomo, please take notes, document it as one of the deliverables. You might be driving, you might be following up on Ike to deliver on this task. And of course, OPE can also support. But we need to come up with a data migration strategy and a data mapping document for this project. Please document it somewhere and add it as part of the outcome of this meeting. Okay, so let's look at data governance and what we call the responsibility assignment metrics. So you see here that what part of what Ike is going to do is this Ike? I think I'll pass this on for the data governance. Of course, Tamomo and Jerry will be responsible for this. So this is just the data activities and who will be doing what. Like I said, everybody is going to work. So, for example, data extraction, who will be the owner? The business might give us the extraction we want. Who will be verifying it? Who will be analyzing it? Who is the project manager? Who will be informed? So you see, this is a responsibility assignment matrix. Arrow here means responsible. This arrow. C means consulted. That somebody needs to, that this guy will need to be consulted for verifying data. A means accountable. Who is accountable for this process? And I means who will need to be informed. So for our data migration, please, Tamomo and Jerry, come up with, you can take a screenshot of this, come up with a data governance metrics, responsibility metrics of who will be doing what. So I can, so of course, the extraction will be done by the business. We're going to be getting Excel files. So somebody will need to own that file. Somebody will need to verify it. Somebody will need to cleanse it. So if you check, if we look at the methodology, the ETL methodology we're going to be using is going to be what we call so we are going to have data cleanup. So once we have those files, somebody will have to be responsible for, not somebody, IK is responsible for the data cleaning. And what it means is he has to discuss with the business to extract the data we need, whether it's exported to us in Excel. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you now.
Yes, okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so that data will be exported in Excel, right? So once it comes into Excel, IK and the project team, Jerry and Tamumu, will be responsible for transforming it. So the next thing is to transform it. So to transform means that you're supposed to map that data with the Sage or SAP template. For example, I showed you a template. So you're supposed to make sure that whatever data you get, for example, they might just give you 100 list of customers, right? You have to now tell them, okay, I need, out of this 100, can you provide me with the category, their delivery, their address, the relevant, what we call required data. So for you to know the required data, you need to know Sage and what Sage wants. So if you come here and you go to customer data, for example, if you add customer, you will see the, oh, I'm still sitting here. I've not created. When we start our project, I'm going to create this for in our dev system. So okay, so let me show you what will happen. So if I go to customers, for example, and add a new customer. So ideally, what do I need to create a customer account? I need his name. I need their opening balances. I need their postal address. I need delivery address. I need discount, whether they are, whether they have discount or not. I need email. I need phone number. If you check the Excel, the template, you see all those things are there. Telephone number, address, see email address, you see statement, print. So everything you have in this, you see postal address, opening balance. So everything this opening balance, this opening balance amount. So everything you have in this form really is on that Excel. But there are some that is a must. Name, address, email, and phone number are very, very required. And if they have balance, they have to give us the balance. So when we say we are doing transforming, is to make sure that the balance that the data they are giving to us, we map it to the Sage data the Sage template we have. You have to map it. And in asking for information, you have to make sure the information you're asking will be important for you to implement in Sage. So you need to ask for the relevant information that Sage needs. Don't just go and ask any question. Your question should be, you should have gone through the Sage system to know the required information Sage will need. Then you ask those questions, and when you come back, you transform it by making sure that it complies with the template. Then after you have transformed, which is source to target mapping, the next step will be to now load. So you see, when we talk about data ETL methodology, we call it ETL methodology because ETL means extract, transform, and load. So data migration process needs to align or needs to be adopted in these three high-level methodology. So you have to extract the data, which will be the work of the client. It's our job to transform it and to load it. The first one is the job for the business. The last two is our job. So so this task will be sitting between the project team and finance. So, and of course, data is not just finance. We have data in procurement and sales. So this will be a joint effort between John, Ike, Jerry, and Tamomo. And of course, Osaro can support. Osaro, I still have there's still unclarity around your availability. So after this call, please, let's have a conversation. I need to understand what is happening as regards your availability before I start, because that's a risk I've identified. So after this call, let me know what your availability is like. But this is what we look at when we talk about data migration. Is this 2:30? Okay, 3:30. That's awesome. Yeah, so this is what we are going to be doing in data migration. So you see there is work. There is work. So but before you do some of this job, you need to know the system. So this coming week, I think we have enjoyed the Christmas. From Monday, Some of us worked through the Christmas anyway. Some of us didn't even. Some of us went and collected extra work, and we made a lot of money. So it's good. But please, by this coming week, you should really start focusing on knowing the system. So I'm not going to be really giving you an assignment this week because I need you to focus on what we have on hand. So if you look at the ETL stages, extract, you see what really happens in the extraction phase. This process defines activities that must be performed to pull data stored in the source system for further processing. So this is the description. So the key activity here is data will be extracted from production servers or manually compiled from Excel sheets and populated into the provided Excel template for transformation. So you have that Excel template. Then who is the owner? The data owner. So the business will own this, really. So the next one is transformation. This is a process that defines the activities that will enable the transformation of data pulled from the source system based on certain business rules. This is the description of data migration. Then what happens here is cleansed data drawn from source system is validated, populated, formatted in a prescribed upload template. Then, of course, this is a data owner or somebody who is responsible for solving this problem, which is all the people I've mentioned. Then load. This process defines the activities that will enable the loading of extracted and transformed data into the system. So you have to make sure this is D365, this is Dynamics. Then we make sure that before you load, all the configurations have been done, everything is okay. When you have errors, you have to correct those errors because there are some mappings that has to be done. For example, decimal points, comma, sometimes spaces in names. Sometimes there are requirements that data file will need. If you put double space before a name, so what do I mean? If you're to upload data and you put a space, for example, this is general distributors. Let's say this is the business name, Kingdom. So if the business name is Kingdom Holland, sorry, is the name of the customer is Business Holland Kingdom. Why am I not? Oh, Kingdom Ministry. Yeah. So if this is the customer name, if you put an extra space here, this thing will not load. If there's a space between the two words, it will throw up an error. So this, though, you need to make sure that you understand what the data requirements are. If there are some alphabets or some characters, the system will not accept. So that's what you have to do when you do transformation. You have to make sure everything aligns with the requirements of the template. Then let's look at different data migration strategy. Now, there are many ways to build a data migration strategy, and companies will select the most appropriate one according to their specific business needs and requirements. However, most strategies fall into two categories. One is called the big bang. So if you're doing data migration, you have to define which of these strategy am I going to be using to do loading and go live. One is big bang. So big bang migration approach is an approach where a whole transfer is completed within a time window. Live system are shut down while data goes through data processing and moving to the new database. So if you're using the big bang approach, it means that there will be a blackout, what we call blackout, where the system is shut down and you have to now migrate your data from the quality system to the production system, do some round of testing, and the next morning or the next week, if it's a weekend, on Monday morning, the data is up and live and running. So, but the idea of Big Bang is you're doing everything at once. But there's a limited time within which you should upload all your data. So there has to be a blackout or a shutdown Now, the advantage of this method is that it all happens in one relatively short, short time frame. The pressure on the other side can be significant as business operates without one of its resources, which risks the implementation. So really, while it's very convenient in the sense that let's shut down and make sure we do this thing once and for all, it can also be a risk, right? So if you decide the big bang approach, be sure to run the data migration process before the actual event. So before you use big bang, make sure you have used your development system to test. Make sure you have used your QA system to test. Make sure you have tested, data migration back to back if you're using the big bang approach. The second approach is what we call trickle. So trickle migrations, in contrast, complete the migration process in phases. During the implementation, the old system and the new system run parallel, which eliminates downtime or operational interruptions. Processes running in real time can keep data continuously migrating. Trickle data migration can be fairly complex in design, but if done right, usually reduces risk. So it's either you're using the big bang approach, which we'll most likely use in our project. We're going to do big bang because we don't have a lot of time, or you use what we call the trickle approach, where you migrate according to phases. So you can migrate one module, you can migrate logistics first, then migrate finance, then migrate banking. So you just migrate them in phases. Yeah, do we have some time? Yes, we have some 30 minutes. So the next we're going to look at is testing. I think that's the last we're going to look at. No, I think I'm going to stop here.